through the project plan for what you're going to be building. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it and trying to figure out what is the most effective way to visualize the data. And it's really difficult to think about how we're going to gather it all and then structure it so that we can present it, but then also make it understandable to the user as they're inputting their data so they understand what's going on and how they have to do it. So I'll just show you kind of what, I'll exit this and I'll go into the end version. So I'll just show you what we're hoping to have it look like at the end. So we want to have this chart, which I've shown you guys before, which has a projection of their lifetime spending. And then maybe a little chart over here that shows their breakdown according to their spending over the month. And then I'm thinking that we'll align it really similar to the net worth section because the user will have experience building something with that type of platform. So it'll be easier for them to work with something that's quite similar. And so here they could have different inputs. So we could break it down according to different types of spending, like transportation cost, essential living, um, and then housing costs. Then another one that I was thinking is large expenses. So I've been trying to figure out how do we take expenses and just have them be set over specific periods of time. Like if they have a kid for 18 years, that'll cost, say, $6,000 more per year. How do they input that they'll have the kid from this set of time to the other set of time, and then how much that'll cost, so that fills out into the chart. So the way that I think I'd like to approach it is I'll just start from the beginning here. So it'll be very similar to net worth in that they come in and there's this wizard. So there's a little introduction. Once the full product is done, then we'll have a video here that explains what they're going to be doing in the spending section and why it's important so that they understand. Then also probably will show them what the end goal will look like so they know what they're trying to build. Then as they go through, we would divide it into two different, so we've got a section like housing costs. So we could call this category, and then we could divide fixed and variable. So with housing costs, you've got your mortgage, which is the same every month. But then you also have variable costs like your heating or your electricity. And so the trouble that I'm trying to think of is basically what I'm doing is inventing a whole new way to look at your budgets and to look at how you structure your finances and think about it. And so it's kind of difficult to just invent it and then also do all the coding for it. But I think let's try this. And then the goal eventually in April, I'll be doing customer testing. So then I think if we put something in front of them that is new and unique, then they can test it and tell us or tell me if it's something that they like or not. So I think let's just build it and then see what they say. So what I'm thinking is we would have this category, which would be, say, housing costs. We divide it into fixed and variable expenses. So they could toggle between the two. So if they add an expense, they can make it fixed. They could put in their stuff, their monthly cost, and then add it, and they'll see it in the two categories. So another example here, transportation costs. They might have their car payment, their insurance. That's a known cost that is the same every month. Whereas their gas is variable, or their maintenance is variable. So in this case, what I was thinking for the variable would be to have a range of expenses, because people never, like, it's impossible to put a specific number on how much you spend on gas every month. Like, you can't say I spend $400 a month, because sometimes you go to Vancouver, other times you visit your mom in Vernon or something like that. So it's variable, and as variable, I think it would be cool to have a range. So you could say, well, I spend maybe between $200 and $400 a month, and so if we have this dual range bar where they can select the or the range of expenses and then have that show up, I think that would be pretty interesting. So then they could toggle between fixed. So if it's a fixed cost, they just input that one cost. If it's variable, then they input the range. Similarly, they might have expenses that are over a specific period of time, like this car payment. So this might be a fixed payment, but then is limited in duration. So then they could click limited, then years remaining pops up. So they could say, well, I've got 6 years left on my car payment. So then they can say that's what I've got left and then put that in. And then that way in the chart, we'll be able to show once the car payment ends. So, so it's quite a bit of input, but it will provide a lot more value to the user at the end because they'll be able to see how it all plays out. So that would say the transportation costs, then general lifestyle. So then I was also thinking it would be good to hard code in a whole bunch of these things initially. So when they come to the page, there's already cell phone in there and life insurance and Spotify or Netflix, or all of these things are already there. And then they could click it and edit it if they want to. But that way it just reminds them of different expenses that they might have, like groceries or, um, I don't know, maintenance. I think that's for a vehicle. I just copied that over. Travel, things like that. So I'll see if these are editable. Oh, I didn't set these to be editable. But so they could have kind of that understanding of what they'll need to put in and then slowly go through, add the stuff. Then this is where it's totally different. There's no budget software that I know of that does something specifically like this. I know there's some that talk about one-time expenses, but not duration expenses. So I'm thinking that the final one, they'll have the option to put in a one-time expense, say like buy a house, which would be $45,000, say, or travel to Europe. These are one time at one specific age, so it would be kind of a fixed expense at a specific age of their when the event happens. Then another one could be duration. So I'll see if this works. Okay, so I don't have my buttons working right here, but so they could have a duration expense, which could be, say, have a kid uh, from age um, from age 34 to 44. So they could put in age 34, or here's 45, and then put in a rough range of what that expense might be. So then we're able to project that into the chart and show, okay, you'll have a kid from this period, so his life is going to be more expensive at this time. Then they could also have a car now, but then be paying it down. So maybe in 10 years they might want to buy another car. So then they could add that in as an expense, and then say from age 42 to 48, I'll probably have this expense with the car. So they'll add that in. Then, let's see here. There we go. Then they come to the final page. So having taken all that data, then we can present it in a chart that shows how their expenses will change. Then they can click on it and go into each different one if they want to. So if they click on it, it'll bring up, say, car payment, and then they could edit it. They could switch it from a fixed expense to a variable expense, or so on. And so then they'll be able to change the chart if they want to. But then understanding this, they'll be able to see, okay, so at this period of my life, I'm going to have way more expenses because I have the car payment and I have the kid. But then when I turn 53, I might go to Europe, but I won't have that many expenses other than that. And so that would be life changing for a lot of people to have that type of information accessible to them. So that's the goal of building this project. Now the challenges, it will be a challenging project to build. Hopefully you'll be able to draw on what I've already built with the net worth section, so that should help quite a bit. Um, we have to think about how we're going to be storing the data for each item. Say like car payment, how do we store that data? And then each item might have two different types of, or it's going to have a start time and an end time. And so we'll have to discuss what the structure of the data will look like for each item. And then also it'll be a little tricky to have these different sections here, one time and duration. And then a problem too that I'm throwing at you, which is difficult, is that this changes. So we've got one time and duration is different than fixed and variable. So even though the layout is the same, these little changes can be a little bit difficult to set up, but that's just a challenge we'll have to overcome. Then also here, there'll be some challenges with the switching of the bars. Basically, we'll just need to put some if statements in that will render different bars. I already have this dual range bar built, so you won't have to build any components. You'll just have to link them in. And then also setting it so that it'll show specific age at event or age when it ends, things like that. So this will be the project. And then this is what I'm going to hand off to you guys to build, but I'll be there to help you a whole bunch throughout the whole thing. Then, as we get further along, in order to build the charts, we're going to have gathered all of this data in our Redux reducer. So we're going to have one reducer that has a whole bunch of data. Then we're going to be having to manipulate that data to build these charts. And so we do that using what are called selectors, which I've talked about a bit before. So the selectors will be looking at the data, they'll make all the changes to it, and then using that, we'll build the charts. So the selectors and that section is quite labor intensive because you have to really think through the code and how it's structured and then structure it in a way that the charts can read. So I think what we'll do is we'll see how you're doing with this building of the overall layout of it. And then if you feel like you'd like to take on the challenge of the selectors, that would be amazing. But otherwise, I'm happy to take over that whole section. So I could work on receiving all the data once it's been gathered, and then building out the selectors, and then also building out the charts. So that's it. So that'll be the project. I'll send you a copy of the new Adobe XD file, and I'm sorry that it's changing throughout the building. I think for now, I'm just going to lock down that this will be what the final project should look like, and then you'll be able to just go and start working away on it properly. Um, so yeah, so hopefully this is helpful, and then I'll still do some videos going over my code with the net worth section so that you can see what I've been doing there, and then we can get to work building. Cool.